Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey there, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will. But if you still have some questions, you've come to the right place. It's office hours. It's your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, and as I'm joined, as always, by Mike Rance.
Gloves.
And Paul Reisman, back from vacation. Welcome back, buddy.
Are gloves now accessories? Are they? What is? I don't. What's the point of the?
Okay, moving right along. We're at a good start already.
50 years
Gloves
after
aren't
his
very-
vacation.
Gloves aren't very effective if they don't cover your hands. So I'm just not sure why they're useful.
Well, we're so glad you're here. So glad you are here to join us in the chat for another wonderful week of talking about spoilers. I do want to say, if you want to join the wonderful people who have been spamming emotes in the chat or anything else, you can consider clicking that join button. We are actually needing 8 more people to join the channel as members so that we can get access to that Lumia emote. So we've been really working on that. Consider checking that out. But regardless, we're happy you're here. Consider clicking that subscribe button to get access to notified when we make our content, including our new every time, including our new TikTok. We've actually, you've probably noticed that we uploaded some spoiler in a minute videos this week. Those are actually re-uploads from the Ruler School TCG TikTok. We decided there was kind of some ways of content that we can't really do easily directly through YouTube. It's a cool way to interact with the community, so consider checking that out. You can just search Ruler School TCG on TikTok. You can also, we're uploading those as shorts here on YouTube, so you can check those out. Probably going to be doing at least one of those a day through spoiler season and into the set release. I've got some pretty cool ideas of things to hit up with just minute time. Speaking of things to get excited about,
Oh yeah.
new product.
New product.
That's a thing.
Oh,
Jeremy.
my jellies.
Jeremy, gloves.
I know, I'm working on it.
No, you're not working on it. Go get them. Love you, Matt Seymour. $200 for
gloves.
cosplay? Oh, hell yeah. I want to see that. That's like
gloves
$3.
cosplay.
I did tell them that if they do a large enough super chat, I'll do a stream in cosplay. I have all of my cosplays still available, so just tell me which one you want, I suppose.
Gloves.
But
Gloves.
like I said, we're getting ready. We actually recorded some unboxings of these to be able to post later for TikTok. You'll be able to see those openings first on our TikTok before they come up here on the channel. So
You can see Jeremy be a boomer with big TikTok boomer energy.
yeah, big TikTok boomer energy. So consider checking that out.
Wait,
But
what's a TikTok? What do you have a username? Are you
Boomer Paul.
are you clocking to somewhere?
hashtag boomer Paul.
Are you clocking, son?
I know clocking anymore.
are you-
That sounds
Are you
nice.
talking, son? Anyway, let's talk about spoilers because that's why we're really here.
You're here for the spoilers. I'm here for Paul.
Yeah, spoilers.
So we're really here to talk about spoilers. Last week we did not know Wolfgang, so we're going to start with Wolfgang
We saw
and go
Brad, though.
all the way up to the current. So Wolfgang, Guide of the Demonic World. Paul, your internet is like really like lagging or something. Anyway, Wolfgang, Guide of the Demonic World, 2 judgment for
Wolfgang
black,
gang.
or 2 black for judgment. Pay X, search your deck for a Demonic World edition with total cost X or less that doesn't share a name with the entities you control, and put it into the field. Then shuffle your deck. You may play this ability only during your turn and only once per turn. This does not mean it's not instant speed. You can do this during upkeep, which is hilarious, and I love it. And then we'll flip over to his other side because it's faster just to hit both sides real fast. 7/10 with Bane, so has wings, can't fly. Enter, put the top card of your Magic Stone deck into the field rested. Search your deck for a Demonic World edition, any Demonic World edition, and put it into the field, then shuffle your deck. Also, key point in mind that he gains the race Demonic World when he flips.
Oh.
which
He
That's a nice
is-
touch.
which is pretty great.
Bro, what would it be like if I wasn't demonic, bro? Bro, you're my demonic world, bro. Bro.
So we've only seen one demonic world so far, in all the spoilers. And his Marvel rare, which we'll talk about in a minute. I really want to know what the other demonic worlds are and like in what ways they benefit from having different names. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like if the benefit to having different names is some kind of like Exodia effect of like have a different number and you win. I'm like, okay, that's kind of lame. But if it's like on enter based on the number, do this, kind of like the one we've already seen, but with a lot of diversity to them, that makes me a lot more excited because I love utility decks. I love the way that black control has kind of always been more of a utility search your deck kind of color. And it would be really cool to see that get played out through additions. I'm excited about it. Wolfgang's probably the one I'm most excited to play, to be honest. Anyone have some thoughts?
It is a black ruler, therefore Jeremy will love it.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Unless it's Mikage.
Said this before. Guy went from twunk to twink in one set. Crazy how that work.
Yeah, that's a little bit nuts.
He has a lost hair, doesn't have the blindfold anymore, he's got the eyes. And then we'll talk about the actual card itself.
Yes, please.
The fact that he's doesn't really have a way to kind of like protect himself at all kind of has me turned off a little bit. But the fact that he is a demonic world is kind of nice. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
On his flip alone, he counts himself and the card he gets as 2 demonic worlds for the cards that you're using, and we see one of his support cards coming up that's like gonna be using that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
so he's not really like a ruler that you want to be actively flipping early on or even in the mid game. Like you only want to flip him on the turn where you want to push.
I think I agree. Or based on what demonic worlds we see, where hitting that specific demonic world could like really, really hurt your opponent. The other thing to note that's very interesting about his front half is this guy also really benefits from heart-to-heart talk.
Yeah,
like probably a mandatory 4 of in Wolfgang decks because there's just a very real.
I wouldn't say mandatory, but it's a good card for sure.
Because, and I'll say this to the reason why. One of the things I think that we're seeing a lot of, especially with the card we'll talk about later, is decks that have this kind of during your turn kind of spending resources are gonna want to try to find ways to still leave up interaction during your opponent's turn, and Heart to Heart just lets Wolfgang do that. Lets him grab an addition for less cost, potentially 0, and then still be able to make other plays or leave up interaction during your opponent's turn. So progressing his board state while still being able to react seems really important for him.
Something really interesting is that his front side can't grab things with different names, so your deck might become cloggy with him, but the flip side can grab something that already has the same name as something you control. So it's like, I don't know, there's a lot of incentive to play out his abilities in the early game if you can, and then in the late game, if you just want to double up on, say there's like, 2 good demonic worlds and then like a super or Marvel rare that's busted, as we expect. So
we'll get to it. We got lots of cards to get through.
We could definitely get to it. But
speaking of things to justify Brad wanting, or not Brad, to Wolfgang wanting to use his stuff more often, we have winds of the demonic world, 3 cost quick cast. You pay 1 black less to play this card for each demonic world you control. Also, again, this counts Wolfgang after he's flipped. Remove target resonator from the game and draw a card. Cantrip removal for black seems
for
great.
Free.
Potentially free seems great.
If you're playing Wolfgang, it's free.
Yeah.
Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, if you're playing Wolfgang, it's free.
Yeah, I looked at this card and I said it in there. This card is going to be underrated in the set. Like, this thing is just like, clearly it's like a slower card. Like, you want to be playing a slower game, but I think that if you, with the tools that we've been seeing for black in this new set, as well as just literally anything, like, you can make a really, really solid Wolfgang deck just with what we have so far, except for, we've got to see the rest of the demonic worlds. But as soon as we see the rest of the demonic worlds, then we're going to have a pretty sick deck already. Not going to lie.
Yeah, I agree.
The cost of this thing could potentially just go down very, very fast, even by turn 2. So like all of these are on board for like the rest of the game, and they're just going to be.
Imagine if there's a demonic world that lets you produce mana to use Wolfgang's abilities.
Oh,
That would be nuts.
That'd be insane. But we're not going to think about that right
We're
now.
not gonna
We're
think
gonna
about
think
yeah.
We're gonna think about
What ifs,
we're gonna
yeah.
think about Fallen Angel of Terminus. That's what we're gonna think about. 3 cost, 10/10 flying.
Oh,
Flying, Drain, Bane, and Barrier White, which after having played some games just with the Roscoe this past weekend, Barrier White is surprisingly relevant. There's a lot of
Schrodinger's Cry exists.
there's a lot of white removal, like Pierre, Seal of Lenneth, like Seal of Lenneth not really played very much anymore, but like
gets around
Schrodinger's Cry.
Schrodinger's Cry.
What's the one that removes something with 900 more attack? Light of Sacred Spirit?
Light of Sacred Spirit. Like
Light of Sacred Spirit.
White
Cage Mother Goose.
White has some of the most like effective spot removal in the game. Like you'd be surprised how much Barrier White is like strangely relevant. It's also going to protect us from Tiger Magic, the new Charlotte's transformation magic. Like just ignores it completely. I don't care. That's pretty nuts. This guy is good. But anyway, that's not even where he stops. He can rest a recovered demonic world to give himself +4/+4. He can rest 2 to give -8/8 to your J/resonators your opponent controls. So just rest 2 final battle. Okay. And then rest 3 for an alternative win condition that if he connects with your opponent's face, you win the game.
Sure, if this thing with resting recovered demonic worlds to gain attack is already hitting your opponent in the face, you're probably already winning the game. It seems a little bit overkill, but at the same time, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love alternate win conditions?
Yeah, there are going to be... So I'll put this. There are going to be games where you lose to this. Like, it's just going to happen. However, my favorite ability of him is the -8/8.
That's insane.
Like, if I can just permanently control my opponent's board state or set up them not being able to play resonators with -8/8s, I'm probably winning the game anyway. So, like, I don't really need the win the game trigger, especially since we have stuff like Loretta, Fat Witch. You're welcome. To be able to like to be able to even cancel that win the game trigger in general. Like the -8/8 is the biggest part of this to me. Hands down. Beautiful card, so flavorful, and I love
something
it.
I will say, something I do really like about this card is that when you play in the Almir's matchup, the life total does not matter.
Yeah, who cares about your life total? I connected with your face. The game's over. We're done.
Boom.
And then
7,000 life, more like no life. Let's go.
We have our next our first demonic world.
First demonic world.
The first layer of the demonic world. 2 black, enter. This card deals 400 damage multiplied by X to your opponent, and you gain that much life, where X is 400 times the number of different names you control. Cool. Like, if this is giving us a hint of what demonic worlds are going to be playing like.
Yeah, I think that's a good balancing mechanic there. Name of like different demonic worlds that you control as opposed to number of demonic worlds you control. I think that's like a good balance because it makes you use Wolfgang's effect, and then it doesn't just.
Oh my god! Victoria just came with the best idea ever. If you stack 2 of those Angel of Terminus effects, you win the game. Win the game.
Oh
no, technically not, because
that doesn't work. I know. Replace the first one
because also you'll win the game before the second one resolves, so you'll only win the game once.
Damn.
Sorry.
The meme is a dream. Sorry, guys.
Also, Matt, he doesn't. He doesn't have swiftness. Matt, breed cards.
No,
he doesn't have swiftness.
Breeding cards is broken.
Reading cards is broken. As our first
T-shirt,
as our first tease of what Wolfgang's support is, I'm very excited about what he has to bring to the table.
Do you want to know something? Actually, if there are like a couple of 1-cost demonic worlds, hitting this thing on your untap and then flipping Wolfgang and grabbing the other one is basically just like an OTK fuel.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like we'll have to see how effective that is. The other thing to note is that we I said the game has swiftness now. That's fair. The other thing to note is that we actually do have a lot of addition hate. In a card that we'll talk about later, as well as the fact we've already seen the Olivia spell that just can wipe all your additions off the board for a very effective cost, which that speaks to a grander sense of like, hey, look,
Olivia.
print threats and answers. So like if Wolfgang starts to rise in power, you'll probably see Olivia rise to beat him, right? Like I imagine that as we see the more cards, we're probably going to see, even within the set itself, a cycle of which one of these rulers is better than one of the others. Like they're like a rock paper scissors lizard Spock kind of situation. And so as one gets better, another one will rise to overtake it, and then the cycle continues and cycle continues. You're welcome. Moving on, talking about Charlotte, the future of the Sacred Spirit. 1 cost 4/4, gains +10/+10 as long as there are 3 or more guidance counters on it. Whenever 1 or more guidance counters are put on this card, the first guidance trigger is produce white, the second is draw 2 cards, and then at the third, you gain things. So this is a better indicator of the idea of guidance. Guidance is like trigger, apply, or trigger, apply. So like you're building to something, and then once you've built it, the card gives a really nice static, continuous effect, which is great, and also gives us better clarification on how guidance works. This is a super rare. It feels like a super rare. You can buff her up very quickly, especially since you're already going to be producing a free white with Faria on turn 1 anyway, and then we have something like Schrodinger, like use the free white, play this, go to your opponent's turn, flash in Schrodinger, like play another card, go to your turn, put a second counter on her, draw 2 cards as the white deck. Like, this is a super rare for guidance. I like it. It's probably going to be a mandatory 4 of, and rightfully so.
If you're playing sword.
If you're playing sword, sorry, yes, if you're playing sword.
It's not far yet. It's just sword.
Just sword.
Very important fact.
Yeah, no, I like this card a lot, and it's beautiful. So, card art.
Where's my shield? I want my shield ruler now. So I can make the sword and shield meme.
Speaking of Charlotte, we mentioned this earlier. Charlotte's lion transformation magic, hence by known as Tiger Magic, I think is what we've talked about as the community moniker for bear magic in the past. Now we have Tiger Magic. So it's light transformation magic, 1 cost, quick cast with Remnant. Target J/Resonator loses all abilities and becomes a 6/6 until end of turn. So we traded off.
Resonator, boy.
So we traded off being able to make it lose its races in exchange for being able to target J rulers. And we also spent that it's a 6/6 instead of a 4/4. So we let them keep a little bit more of their stats. We let them keep their race, and instead we can hit J rulers now, which steals imperishable.
Yes.
Which is insanely relevant.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Because we haven't had anything like that since what?
Here's something interesting.
Final forfeit.
This card is also This card is also useful, like, aggressively if you're playing like small things. Like you hit a 1/1 token with this, gains +5/+5, and you have remnants. You just
Yeah. There's a lot of applications for a card like this, and I've been waiting for it to come back.
Yeah, I really love this kind of like harken back to a card that we've all loved, but not making it a reprint, like bringing it some new flavor. Absolutely love this card. Card's wonderful.
Put it in the cube.
Put in the cube.
Probably
Give me 2 bear magic.
Probably just replace dragon magic at that point.
I just need lion magic now.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Next up we have Manifestation of the Sacred Spirit. 1 cost, target quick cast. Target J/Resonator gains +4/+4 and eternal until end of turn. Put a guidance counter on it. I really do like the fact that we are giving things eternal at quick cast speed, while also giving us guidance counters. Again, this is probably the best outside of Schrodinger. This is probably the best guidance like generator we've seen, because like, especially based on what other continuous effects we can get benefits from on our opponent's turn, or like benefit triggers we can get. Even if you're like just using this to get a guidance trigger and the +4/+4 and eternal is a bonus, this is still a great card. Like, I really like this card a lot. Again, probably going to be a mandatory 4 in sword decks. Gold Kaiser.
Yeah.
Trying to get into Vow. Do the attributes have distinctive playstyles? Yes.
Sort of.
Ish. So white is very much tied to it's probably our most like go wide, like mid-range kind of deck. It uses a lot of removing from the game. It uses a lot of tap down effects, and it uses a lot of like stat buffs or life gain. That's kind of that's kind of white's idea. And then
with like conditional removal.
Yeah, it's white does
like,
have a lot of conditional removal.
So like rested resonators removed from the game, or
attacking
resonator,
blocking.
Yeah.
Blue is our bounce and tempo color, although it struggles to do that in the history of Force of Will. It is our bounce. It's also our biggest draw power color. It certainly has always had the most draw power out of anything in the game. And it's a lot of bounce and tempo. It's had redirects and some canceling of abilities at some times, but that's shifted more towards our control color, which has been green. Green is traditionally our control color. It's also in the past had a lot of the ramp, but Force of Will as a whole has kind of taken the idea of ramp and kind of spread it out. So like everyone kind of has a little bit of ramp and will production. Green has just had the most of it. And green is our like cancel color, pretty much. Red is aggressive and burn, very similar to Magic. A lot of draw discard as well is coming from, including the entire mechanic of the new red ruler is draw discard. And then black is discard your opponent's hand, reanimate stuff, stat negation, like removal through straight removal or hard like stat negation. And then like big boss monsters. Black's always kind of been the color of like, I have a standalone creature that does a thing. Like that's my whole gimmick. That's kind of how black has kind of established itself on the meta. Let's see. So I hope Machina the Timeless Lord. That sounds like it's the Alice original starter deck.
Yeah, like the void.
Alice, like the Alice first Alice cluster. My recommendation would be to search on Amazon for Alice Origins starter deck. If someone can type that in the chat, to just specifically type out the cluster name, look on Amazon for Alice Origins starter deck. Those are going to be more in line with what is currently functioning in Force of Will, and it is not is still in like legal tournament play. But welcome to the game. Glad to have you here. Glad you're asking questions. Hope you found us in the right place. So next up, our last white card is another Atom. 1 cost white, White Garden. You gain 1,000 life.
There's no rabbits in this picture. I'm confused.
That is correct.
Oh.
That is correct.
Wait, Jeremy, can I discard Adam's say card to discard an Atom? Thank you. Okay.
No. I don't understand why this is.
This is. I think a lot of the Atoms, as we'll go through, like I don't really know if there's much to say other than the fact that you're going to want to play a lot of different Atoms to best facilitate her big finisher cards and big combo cards. So like it's just going to be a matter of, is this Atom like a 1, 2, or 3 of? White Garden, based on the and I feel like that's going to be very focused based on what your meta is. So like if your meta is very aggressive, then obviously White Garden goes up in count because you want to be gaining life more frequently. But if you're in a control meta, life gain doesn't mean jack shit. So like it goes down, right? If your meta is all Wolfgang and they don't care about your life total because they're just trying to Terminus you to death, White Garden doesn't do anything, right? So I don't really have too much to say other than it's a cool effect.
Sideboard, maybe.
Sideboard more copies, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
you're probably at least playing one copy, yeah.
In Violet.
Speaking of Violet, Mini Violet. 1 red, 3/4 flying. This card gains Violet Atomic Automaton in addition to its other names. Enter, put up to 2 target Atom chants from your graveyard into your hand. That's insane.
4 of.
And tap, draw a card, then discard a card. This might be a card that sees play like outside of Violet. Like,
yeah,
Like the
Yeah.
fact that it turns on the atoms for not violet, like I know that some people have been talking about like the distinction between this card and Guinevere. I absolutely think this card is better than Guinevere. Like hands down. Because she doesn't, because technically think about it this way. With Guinevere, you lose a resonator and only get one card because you're drawing two and discarding. With Violet, you don't lose a resonator and you still get one card. And also, sometimes more because you're discarding atoms for trigger effects. Like, this card is nuts. And I love it. Also, really fun and limited. In limited, this is nuts as well.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. It's a 3/4 with flying, so I mean you can't ignore that either. And it's a machine, which we have passive support for.
Wait a second. Violet's a machine on her front side, I assume, right? Oh, I'm gonna drop some remote control beasts real quick.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Which is the void color, by the way, in case you're still listening. The void color is machines.
Yeah.
And regalia from the old days.
Someone's saying tiny violet emote. Do I abandon abandon Lumia to make tiny violet instead?
Goodbye.
You gotta
Yes.
you gotta get me to friggin' 100 members before I can do it. So
Get
on it.
All right, everyone in the chat, please.
If you're not a member already,
give us your energy.
Consider clicking that button.
I've known Violet for 2 minutes, and I would die for her.
Next up, we have the Mysteries of My List, our first Mysteries spell, which is very clearly our Brad support. 1 red, quick cast. This card deals 500 damage to target player or J/Resonator. Put a knowledge counter on a J/ruler you control. And then when you hit Seal 10, which is having 10 stones, or if you're Brad, some combination of stones and knowledge counters that equals 10, this card deals 2,000 damage to the chosen target instead. This, to me, is a very clear indicator of the fact that this next meta is going to have a very fierce competition between whether Brad or Welser is the ramp ruler. Because Welser also wants to ramp to 10, also got a lot of tools to make him be able to ramp to 10, and so the question is whose support suite is better? And I, for one, welcome the wind decks trying to beat each other out while the other decks are just like, no, it's fine. You go in a corner and fight.
I'll be over here with big burn spell.
Olivia wins automatically.
I think it's cool. We've had big like exploding burn before. This card doesn't really like. To me, this card isn't doing anything that another deck wouldn't already be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just our 15th Thunder, no 12th Thunder, no 16th Thunder.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Press, you kept the count.
Really I can't count.
Next up, we have Atomic Reactor. 1 cost edition. Enter, search your deck for an atom, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Your maximum hand size increases by 1. I also kind of think this card is at least a 2 of in most Violet decks, particularly because of the fact that like you can just discard that atom that you just drew, and like draw another
I'm
card
convinced
anyway.
that a 1 will search for an atom is play. I also don't think the maximum hand size is enough to really sell it.
The maximum hand size is
the
maximum hand size isn't it for me. It's the
that's gravy. Yeah, it depends on the atom you're grabbing, right? So like we've seen 5 atoms, 4 atoms now. How many atoms?
At this point, we've seen 2 in terms of with what we're talking about. In terms of what's been released, we've seen a lot more. So we've seen 1 for every color. Plus, we've seen 1 for every color.
We've seen 1 for every color. That's what I thought. So I'm sitting here like maybe the one that draws you a card is like the one that I want to get. So I can like cycle through my deck. But even then, I'm not. This card really depends on if we ever get future atom support.
Sure.
And whether or not that atom actually does anything. Because right now, playing a card to search for a card, to discard it to draw another card, in theory sounds good, but this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're like card advantage isn't that good.
You have to pay 2 mana for that.
Yeah,
so, like,
unless you have heart to heart.
True. But then you already paid the mana for it, so you already.
Sure.
Yeah.
Atomic Fusion, 2 cost, 2 cost red. As an additional cost to play this card, discard X atoms with different names. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card. If X is 1 or more, produce red. If X is 2 or more, put X 6/1 Fire Spirit Resonator tokens into the field. If X is 3 or more, J/Resonators you control gain plus 200 swiftness and swiftness until end of the I don't like this card. I get why people.
It seems a little anemic. Yeah.
I get why people are liking it. 100 defense is easy to kill. This doesn't give Pierce. Morning Angel or Exorcist Mage exists as a card. It doesn't trigger the Adam's discard effects to potentially remove something like a Morning Angel. Or sorry, not a Morning Angel, a Exorcist Mage.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems kind
so
of
the same thing that made the demonic worlds balanced up till now is the thing that really nerfs this card for me. Additional cost to play this card, discard X atoms with different names.
Fair enough.
Sad.
If you get the God Hand, where you get this card, you're
5
playing
specific atoms.
Yep, and it's very important that you're playing Milest Mujdart, so you get the extra card draw. So you have this, you have the 5 atoms in your hand, and the Atomic Bahamut, of course.
Yes.
You use the red that was produced.
Yeah.
Off of my list. Play this card.
Yep.
Discard all the atoms from your hand. Draw 2 cards. Discard a 6th atom. Obviously, they just pulled off the top of your deck. Very important.
6th, yeah.
The 6th atom. Very, very, very important thing here.
Yeah.
And then you're producing the red. Doesn't matter if the tokens come into the field. It's fine. Whatever. You can Exorcist Mage that. That's fine. We're okay with that. Then you played the Bahamut with the 5 cards. Blow up the board. Swing for 4K. Easy game, easy life. Anyway.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I want to see it happen. Minha will do it on stream once, and then it'll never be spoken of ever again.
Minha will pull it off on stream one time.
Actually, no, he can't. This is a card that requires you. No, wait. He's gonna have all the atoms in Ragnarok with the singleton atoms.
The epitome of the high challenge. I mean, you technically could pay 0 and then.
Yeah, because you only need the 5 atoms for the Bahamut at that point.
Yeah.
Don't
do this. Minha,
don't do it.
Minha,
do not do this, but also do it.
Moving on to the blue support. We have Terra Thunderfish. We'll let Paul talk the most during this section. 3 cost 10/10. This card can't be canceled. Fish J/Resonators you control gain swiftness. He's a fish, so he gains swiftness. Whenever this card attacks, choose one at random. Rest all magic stones and J/Resonators your opponent controls. That's nuts. Destroy all rested J/Resonators your opponent controls. That's nuts. Fish J/Resonators you control gain +6/+6 and flying until end of turn. Flying fish attack. Also nuts. Even if you don't have random charges, this card is nuts. I'm going to stop talking. Paul.
This is everything that we wanted Mega Thunderfish to be, and Mega Thunderfish was already pretty good. The fact that this just has these bonkers random effects, I'm just going to ignore for the moment. The fact that it can't be canceled is huge. The fact that it just naturally gets swiftness and gives all of your other fish swiftness, also super good. And then you get an additional bonus effect. That in and of itself, and this is a game-ending card. I mean, like, you are tempoing into this card.
Sure.
It's so good that Mike left.
Yeah, and made my head split in half on the stream. No, this is 100% the kind of boss monster that Blue has been wanting for a long time. Blue boss monsters have always felt underwhelming, overcosted, too slow.
Bad.
Too slow. This feels like, yeah, this feels great as a boss monster.
One of the words on him literally means fast. It can't be too slow.
Right.
Swiftness.
But
also notice it gets swiftness even when it's not thunderstorming.
Yeah.
Because thunderstorm, why did that exist? I love
Oh
it.
wait a minute, hold on. You're a Shayla shill. How can you say that? Why does that exist?
He's not
Come on.
anymore.
Because Terra Thunderfish is better.
Friendship ended with Shayla. Olivia is his friend now.
I'll always remember you.
Listen, Paul, reject modernity, embrace tradition.
So no, I really like this card a lot. It makes me wonder. The only thing I have about this card is that it makes me wonder what other fish we're gonna see.
It makes me wonder what Zeta Thunderfish is going to be.
Yeah,
It's
we're
just
gonna
going to be
get
like it's just going to be like a 5K 5K. That
Yeah.
It's just gonna be
just
like
cost-
this fish. I'm just like a really buff guy.
yeah, just like huge, just like that, like a buff Magikarp picture. It's just
No.
it.
It's Magic Stone Golem with this as a face.
Yep,
There you
Okay, cool.
100%.
I
That's
can agree with
it.
that.
That's great. Next up we have for every great card in blue, there must be a terrible card in blue.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Bogus Meditation, 1 cost, choose 1 at random. 4C3, draw a card, draw 2 cards. For every 2 there is a fro.
Now I call this card bogus because this card fucking sucks.
Yes. Yes. This card absolutely, like, there's not even a reason to talk about it. It's terrible. Like,
Moving on.
One will draw 2 is like okay.
if
3
it was
years
quick
ago.
cast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If it
In
was
Olivia,
quick cast.
if you get 2 cards off of 1 card, I mean, it's better than 4C is,
Sure.
but it's only good in Olivia, and you don't want to run it.
Yeah, no. Yeah. You just played this card instead.
Oh yeah, hey, look.
Mysteries of
Quick
Mood,
cast.
Mysteries of Moonstart. 1 drop, draw a card, put a knowledge counters on a J/ruler you control, and it's seal 10, draw 3 cards instead. Literally just
Better.
play this instead of Bogus Meditation if you need card draw that bad. It's fine.
Also, do you get the knowledge counter if you're at seal 10, or is it you draw 3 cards instead of the whole effect?
Ooh, that's a good question. The replacement
It doesn't matter though, because once you're at 10 stones, you have enough knowledge counters.
it's,
I want my 11th knowledge counter.
Yeah.
I'm Brad.
Speaking of more water cards, we have the Water Atom Everfrost. That is just pay 1 draw card, or when discarded draw card. Great card. Probably gonna be at least a 2 of in most Violet decks, simply because they're just like a.
I could see this as a 4 of in not Violet, honestly. It just makes your immediate draw effect just like
yeah.
a +1 card advantage,
Potentially.
honestly.
It just comes down to
Ranger-
it just comes down to how like clogged her deck is, and like how much she needs to dig through it so fast, and so that comes down to when we actually get to deck building. Like I think
Yeah.
this card is at least 2 of, if not maybe a 4 of.
It also turns Mini Violet into Guinevere, so that's great.
There you go. Who doesn't die?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. All right.
He claims you don't. Brandon says you don't get the counter. The seal 10 replaces the effect entirely, which would make a ton of sense.
Yep.
Speaking of Brad, so this is the card that we started our little daily TikTok rants on. So I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts because I've kind of shared mine over there. We have Spark of Life, 1 cost green, destroy target J ruler you control and target non-Magic Stone entity your opponent controls. Thoughts?
Card good. Suicide is badass.
With Brad in the context of Force of Will. Rulers
Take that out of
TCG
context,
does not
Marriage
advocate.
family therapist, red lights go on. What?
Woo! Woo! Stop! Do not take that as. Do not.
I just want to hit my Eternal J Ruler with this all day long and just go ham. That's all I want to do, man.
So in the Harry Potter meme that is Brad, this is the Elder Wand. Play 4 of it.
Yeah.
Play 4 Elder Wands.
My thought for this that I'll share for my little TikTok-y thing was that there with the spells that put guidance counters on him, there wasn't really anything motivating me to want to flip Brad. I was like, why would I pay 1 to flip him when I can just pay 1 to do something and generate counters anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Ta-da!
There you go.
Now I have kind of a justification for reason to want to flip him, which is great. Also, yeah, Vijay, that's just our support.
It's also Fox support.
Yeah.
Because Fox can't be destroyed.
Yep. Until your opponent responds by using Gradius and then removes all of their abilities, then you cry.
Or the light spell that we just spoiled today. Haha.
Whoops.
Oh.
Whoops.
Oopsie.
Doesn't hurt
What I
Brad
do like
though.
about this is that
doesn't it- he
that
has
little
Brad.
nuance in there, right? that little nuance in there where it says destroy target non-magic stone entity, meaning resonators, additions,
J rulers.
J-rulers, regalia, whatever you want.
Yeah, no,
Just
I
not
like
a
it.
stone.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
It really feeds into Brad's whole archetype, which I think is great. Next up, we have the Eyes of the Avenger. 1 cost addition. Enter. Your opponent reveals their hand. Draw a card.
Wow. Amazing.
I would play
Next.
Bogus Meditation.
What? It just makes me wonder what the Avenger is. Like,
Captain America or Captain Ataractia, whatever you prefer.
yeah.
Or Iron Man, or remote control golem.
Every set's gotta every set's gotta have a little bit of chaff, I guess, and this certainly feels like it. Speaking of the opposite of that, Hero of Wind, 2 costs 6/7. This card gains at the end of turn. Recover all magic stones you control, as long as there are 2 or more guidance counters on it. Whenever 1 or more guidance counters are put on this card, guidance 1, recover 2 magic stones you control. So with guidance 1, it just pays for itself, which is insane. And then at guidance 2, you just, as long as it stays on board, just recover every turn. This is what I'm talking about, of like finding ways for decks that want to be able to play on their turn to still also be able to have the time for interaction, which feels wonderful. Like there's been kind of a push. Force of Will's had this era where it's like, well, we have to play quick cast everything because I don't want to tap out on my turn. So the fact that we're seeing multiple ways for decks to like, no, you can play things on your turn, it's okay, and still be able to have up room for interaction is really nice to see that game space being like benefited. Card good.
Yeah.
Card thick.
Also that, yes. And then speaking of, again, another Atom, we have Eternal Wind. 1 green, recover a magic stone you control. If discarded, recover a magic stone you control.
Best Atom.
Yeah, this was a 4.
Best Atom side card.
Yeah. Best Atom, hands down. Like, that we've seen so far.
Wait, hold on. The Wind Atom is the best one?
Again, a lot of this comes down to, I mentioned this in my little TikTok thing as well. Force of Will players who can capitalize on like tricking their opponents to make bad plays or like catching your opponent off guard. Typically those kinds of play lines or those kinds of decks tend to do very well. Like baiting out stuff. With Heart to Heart Talk, this is just pay 0, draw a card, recover a stone that didn't exist before, that your opponent might not be thinking about, and then suddenly they walk into a cancel or walk into a response play that they weren't expecting. And that not only do you answer their thing, but you also stole tempo from them. Like, that's why this card is insane to me.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Hear me out here.
Nope. You did.
Okay, cool. I'm going to be playing Welser with Tiny Violet. So I'm going to tap her, ditch the Eternal Wind, recover a stone, play another Eternal Wind, recover the stone, use the effect again, recover the stone, 2 will on your opponent's turn 2, hit him with Welser. Easy game, easy life.
Hit him with Welser?
The 2 cost.
Oh, the 2
cost. 2 cost Welser. The old man who came back from vacation.
I guess,
like,
sure.
Why are there no rabbits?
I'm living my double tap Imul dreams, okay? That's all I can do at this point.
That's fair.
Oh, Violet goes into Imul.
Yes.
Wanderer, Conqueror
stuff. Yes. Moving on to more black stuff, we have the Map Maker of the Demonic World, which actually speaks to something that Paul talked about earlier. Demonic worlds you control gain barrier. On enter, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, put a demonic world from among them into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is a Percival that also gives barrier, which is really, really nice to your demonic worlds. And by the way, Wolfgang is a demonic world, so this card will give Wolfgang barrier. Relevant.
Mildly.
Because we do have stuff that gets around barrier. That's important.
Well, I mean, he's a 4/4 who doesn't get barrier, so it's like, okay, kill that guy, then kill your Wolfgang.
Yeah.
So that's always a potential problem that Wolfgang is going to have, but I like that this is the alternative to giving Wolfgang natural barrier.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Cool card. Cool.
Did we skip a card, or am I just not in the same order that you are?
It might be in a different order.
Same order.
Okay.
Oh, right. I missed the. I had downloaded it earlier for the thumbnail. So I gotta go find it. 1 second.
Yeah.
I missed
The
the
witch.
the
of the
actual
fallen
the
Real
actual
talk on
floodgate.
Mapmaker, I think the fact that he reveals cards and you have to kind of chance it to get the demonic world makes me think that he's not going to be a playable card. If he put it into the field instead, he would have been playable, but that also would have been very overtuned.
Agreed.
So I think he's like any pushing of him would have made him too good, and I think he's pushed too low at this point, which is why I don't think you'll see play.
Yeah, probably not. This card though.
This card though,
the Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, one cost black 4/4. Your opponent cannot search their deck. At seal 5, enter. You may reveal a witch you own from outside the game and put it into the field. First off, you cannot grab a stranger witch. Secondly, you cannot grab a time spinning witch. Stop trying to do it; it doesn't work.
Just in the rules. If the J ruler would move from a zone to another zone that isn't what is it, the ruler area, it doesn't move.
Yeah, you don't.
Something like that.
You also can't put a Jade ruler into like the card in your sideboard is the ruler side, which is not a witch. So it doesn't work.
No, ruler side's a witch.
Is it? Well, it still doesn't work. Don't do it.
It still doesn't work. Don't try it.
This being
now,
said,
once we get those witch editions, that's what we're talking
about. Yeah. That being said, I love this card. I have wanted a card like this to be printed for 2 years. Searching in Force of Will has gotten so insane.
I love Thunder King Ryo.
Like, searching in Force of Will has gotten so insane to the point of it is probably the leading cause of the most degenerate stuff we've seen in the past 2 years. Is like solely somehow connected to the word search. In terms of consistency, in terms of what they're grabbing or whatever. This is the kind of floodgate that I absolutely have wanted. And brings us to kind of a topic we'll talk about kind of as a whole because we don't have that many spoilers left, so I think this is a good time to bring it back. This set is clearly introducing us to floodgates, like proper floodgates. And yes, please. I'm about it.
Toby, what are you talking about?
Blue Witch from New Valhalla. There's a Blue Witch in there. There's a couple of them.
Where? Who? When?
Blue Witch from New Valhalla.
Toby will bring it up. Let's talk about floodgates, guys.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
so
floodgates.
For those of you...
Yu-Gi-Oh!
So
those are the days.
Floodgates are this idea of there being cards that hinder or prevent other specific types of deck strategies from being able to run as effectively or just being able to be played at all. Floodgates are helpful for an overall game health because when designed properly, to the point that all they are is a gate and not a threat, it provides some nice counterplay in terms of side decks and everything else, and it allows you to have a generally healthier meta that has to learn to adapt and not be so reliant on one specific thing, because card games do that. However, floodgates have been a problem in Force of Will's history because the floodgates have just been bigger threats. Like the very first one we can think of, Black Moonbeam. Black Moonbeam was designed to be a floodgate for Reflect Refrain or stuff like that. And then Reflect Refrain just played it anyway. Like that was a floodgate that was actually
How bad I do anyway.
So it actually like was a worse threat, was a problem, right? It was too broad. It was designed for a specific thing, but it was executed so poorly that it was too broad and carried with it too much power that then allowed it to be applied in a way that was degenerate. That's Force of Will's kind of biggest problem with floodgates over the years, that we've just not been good at it. This set has knocked floodgating out of the park in just a perfect way. This card is efficient, so it feels fine to be able to play. This card is specific, and this card is not a threat. So it is a floodgate for a specific concept. It's not so specific that like you're never going to be able to use it, but at the same time, it's not so broad that you can't play around it. And again, it is not a threat. Literally, all it does is stopping someone from searching. It does it. It's a 4/4 body. You can remove it. If you're a draw power deck, you literally don't give a shit about this card. If you're an aggressive deck that's just trying to push through for lethal, you literally don't give a shit about this card. This is amazing. I love it. Go back in time and put this in a set from 2 years ago and then reprint it every single set. Like, done.
Yeah. So I'm looking from like the Conqueror perspective a little bit, just because I'm curious as to what witches we could bring into the game at this point, outside of this cluster. The only one that's like really relevant, there's like 5, right? So there's Lorrier the Twilight Witch, that's a stranger, can't play it. Iron Cauldron Witch, return a target resonator your opponent controls to its owner's hand, draw a card. That's the blue witch we're talking about. Witch of the Night, don't play it. Wicked Witch of the West, don't play it. Pumpkin Witch.
Currently banned in Conqueror, but maybe not for long, considering there's much brokener things than that.
Yes. So just keep that in mind. Pumpkin Witch exists. Just a one-of in your sideboard. Might be worth it in the future going into Conqueror. The search effect is much more relevant in this meta for New Frontiers. Question, though, because this is, I would assume this means your main deck, not your stone deck. Is that right? Your opponent cannot search their deck means main deck,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when it says your deck, it's referring to main deck. Otherwise, it would say Otherwise, it would say Magic Stone deck. Correct.
Gotcha.
So
just clarifying for everyone else out there.
Yes, the Floodgate is definitely a Yu-Gi-Oh term. From the more that side of like the card game spectrum. That's where Paul and I come from, so that's kind of why I apply it. And the idea of it being like it's something that is supposed to stop the flow or like hold decks back from being able to swarm over you and stuff like that is kind of where the term comes from.
This is like a Thunder King Ryo or an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring or whatever that broken crap is now. That means that trap cards you can't play in that game. Anyway, just this is one of those cards that we always appreciated back then because it added to the stun elements to the game. And now we're seeing that in Force of Will on a quick cast, 1-drop resonator. This card is going to be hot for a very long time. And very relevant.
Quick cast in Raya. Enter trigger. Cool. Quick cast in Witch.
Yeah.
You lose the game. You lose the game.
Oh boy. Wolfgang flip. Okay. But again, that
Wolfgang casts Shub.
Okay, no. But again, that's the thing that I'm talking about is like the way this is so properly designed is the fact that you absolutely can play around it. There are some decks that are literally not going to care about it. Even if you're a deck that does care about it, you can now adjust your deck building and strategy to be better prepared for this, which in forcing you to do that takes some of the degeneracy out of the deck. This idea
this is like the least number of words we've ever seen on a continuous effect on a forcible card ever.
Just so the thing is, for me, the other thing to note about this for me is just by nature of this card existing, it will impact the meta. Because anytime you leave open Darkness Will on your opponent's turn, that immediately forces your opponent to have to think about it. And I think as a whole, when we've been looking at this set, I think Force of Will is trying to tell the community and the game state as a whole, like, look, you can play bursty things if you want, but we have things that are very efficient to counter you, and it's always going to feel bad when you get countered. And to me, yes, please, let's take bursty God Hand style decks out of the meta. I'm all about it. It's not even fun to play the deck, and to me, it's not even fun to play the deck, and it's really not fun to play against that deck. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sharingan Sand Ninja. I quit Yu-Gi-Oh for this game. Welcome. You're not alone with that. People say that game has power creep. It's got nothing on Yu-Gi-Oh. Absolutely. Like
100% agree.
Like Yu-Gi-Oh's power creep is like insane, and I think Saga Cluster is showing us a better approach to what creep means in Force of Will. Like it's not just let's make these cards so much better. It's like, hey, let's like use new cards to correct the problems of the past without making things worse. And I'm like, yeah, let's keep doing that. Great.
Travis, no.
So Mike, how much? Because you know more about Conquer than Jeremy and I do. How much does this card like poop on decks and Wander or Conquer right now?
Pretty hard, honestly. The biggest thing is that Conqueror's power level is such that Wolfgang FTK is actually kind of a threat there. Like, the format is very much like there's a lot of cards that can stop it, but not to a consistent level, especially with the fact that we have extra Incarnation Cthulhu's alongside everything else.
Oh, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So having a one-card way to say, hey, your shub stops here, and you can't search for all your free stuff, then your opponent's just like, okay, I guess I'm going to lose the game then, jeez.
Yeah. Stop it. Get some help.
So this card is very relevant for that, and also very relevant for other general combos. There's some, not very early game combos other than Wolfgang, which probably is going to get some kind of hit in the next set because we have to leave it for one set after it just came out. But like it's toxic, and we don't want toxic strategies in the format, so we got to think about that. But most of the combos that take place on like turns 3 or 4 that are trying to look for, digging through their deck, you're gonna have Darkness Will open when you're playing against those decks. So
exactly.
The fact that she's there is a nice little mind game for people to stop and think, be like, stop it, get some help.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like, just by existing, she's going to cause a good positive impact on the meta. I like it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the next card that I think is going to have the similar kind of effect when we get to it. Mysteries of Gruce Ballesta, to get back into the spoiler conversation. Mysteries of Gruce Ballesta, 1 black. Your opponent banishes a Resonator, put a knowledge counter on a J/ruler you control. At Seal 10, your opponent banishes all Resonators instead.
Seems decent.
Seems pretty great.
Card's amazing.
I think it's.
I love this card.
I think this card is very good. I think this card is probably one of Brad's main sources of removal. But again, in the early game, it's not so insane that you can't play around it. Brad, much like Welser, is very much a ruler that once they get to Seal 10, they probably are winning the game. You would expect. This is just another card that says they're doing that. So nothing really.
I will say, I think, Jeremy, you and I talked about this on the comments of the card, that I was like, oh, this is a power crept Blazers Art of Slow. I wasn't saying that it's like power crept.
Sure.
I'm saying that it's like it's a more flexible.
Sure.
Blazers Art of Slaughter, I'll say.
What the heck am I wearing?
I personally.
That's a box of the mini set on my head.
Look how his like posture is so good.
Jeremy could also just have a square head. I don't really know.
That boy's got something going on, right? I will say this card, the reason I like this card so much is because I remember an encounter with Cthulhu back when it was a card that was relevant, and it was a 2-drop, a black 1, that each player banishes a non-Cthulhu Resonator they control because there was like so much barrier stuff that you couldn't target. So you were like playing this way back in Lapis Cluster to try and get around some of that stuff. And this card reminds me of that a lot. I think it's way better. Like this is a sleeper to me. People are gonna sleep on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that.
I agree on that.
Also, Gruce Ballesta looking like a sexy boy in this picture.
Grandpa.
Next up, we have the Darkness Atom, Void. This is the Atom that will most likely see the most play outside of Violet. Remove all cards in your opponent's graveyard from the game.
This might be an Atom worth searching for.
Also, remember the format where Evil Elemental Uprising was a card that saw play in almost every single sideboard and most main boards?
Yeah,
we are very quickly.
The Scheherazade meta.
We are very quickly. I mean, even past Scheherazade, that card saw.
Oh yeah, that card was amazing.
We are in a format where something similar, I think, could happen. And so again, as a kind of a floodgate, this is kind of similar. Of like, it's not necessarily as much of a floodgate because it doesn't have a continuous effect, but it does have the same kind of concept of like, you gotta think about this card a lot. Oh, it fell. Finally fell.
No, it's gone.
Like, you got to think about this card a lot because dang if it's going to suck when you try to pop off and your opponent's just like Void. And you're like, well, that was good times.
This card is lying to me, though. This is clearly a darkness card, not a void card.
Yeah.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
It's not even a machine. How can it be void?
Yeah, I'll go to purple in exam for the void. Okay, back to green. That's annoying me.
My hand. Everybody in chat, if you keep staring at void, it eventually stares back. Just a quick heads up.
It does eventually. Yep. We have a few more cards here. Excalibur Revolution, 2 cost plus X. Choose one, destroy X target Magic Stone entities your opponent controls, or put a guidance counter on X entities you control. Draw X cards. This card I think is a limited bomb. This card is a limited bomb for sure. This card is terrible outside of it. The fact that it doesn't have quick cast, like I could excuse the cost if it had quick cast. I could excuse the lack of quick cast if it only cost 1 white plus X. But the fact that it's 2 white plus X and then also doesn't have quick cast makes this to me like I'm just gonna, if I want to make you be banishing stuff, I'm gonna find other removal that's better for it. If I want to put guidance counters on my stuff, I'm just gonna play the instant speed guidance counter stuff anyway. Like I just don't.
I don't know. I feel like this card's design space for a super rare is really boring, in my opinion. I wish that you could remove guidance counters as an alternative cost to pay the X for it.
That'd be fine for me.
That'd be so cool.
That'd be fine. Yeah, for me.
This is a card that says, please, well, sir, cancel me.
Please, every deck that exists, cancel me.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a target, so it gives things barrier, and then it's just like, oops. Measure is non-targeting removal, though.
Cards on chase game barrier.
So next up we have the 3 heroes. Hero of Compassion, 2 cost 6/6. This card gets +2/+2 swiftness and flying as long as there are 2 or more guidance counters on it. Whenever 1 or more guidance counters are put on this card, guidance 1, put target light non-chant or light alternative card with target total cost 1 or less from your graveyard into the field. You may only put a non-chant part of an alternative card into the field. There's not an alternative card right now that even exists that this card can grab.
I was about to say,
but the fact that it can grab additions, there are some pretty relevant white 1-drops, like that are like a Seal of Lenneth or a Pierre or
Road to the Sacred Queen. If you want to tap it,
a Schrodinger, the Marvel rare.
Let's see.
So here's the thing too: Guidance 1, Schrodinger. You could grab Schrodinger, and then Schrodinger could then trigger and put a counter on this, and suddenly you have an 8/8 flyer with swiftness for one that you paid 2 for. Like, it's pretty good. There's not a lot of options for it, but the options that it has are pretty dang good. So this is a pretty decent card. Next up, we have Hero of Courage, 3 cost. As you play this card, you can remove 2 guidance counters from rulers and or entities you control. Proper way to phrase that. If you do, you may pay 2 white less to play this card. 8/8 stat line. Remove a guidance counter from a ruler or entity you control. Destroy target addition. That second line is nuts. Nuts. And I'll tell you why. Because if your opponent is playing additions, did you know that if you remove a counter from the Faria ruler and take her back down to 2, and then the next turn you put her back up to 3, you get another free hero? Oh. Like,
so those trigger multiple times.
Like, the idea that, like, not only the fact that we're suddenly spending resources, like other resources, to be able to try to get additions removed at instant speed, which is great, especially since we have an entire ruler who literally is built on additions. But secondly, like, the fact that you can set up silly plays with, like, re-triggering guidance. Your Charlotte's at 2. Okay, go down to 1. Put a counter on her. Draw 2 cards. Seems great. I like this card a lot.
The flavor, is he like taking the guidance away? Is he like, no, you can't have these experiences anymore. It's gone. You have to re-experience this now.
I mean, he's just Link. He just goes through many lives. He just goes through many lives.
He's also the Hero of Courage. That is true.
Oh, hey. Yeah. Hey, look at that. Oh.
Next up, we have the worst sword. Next up, we have the worst one. Hero
the Triforce of Might. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Hero of Might. He's even kind of Ganon looking a little bit. He's got that big beat. Anyway, moving on. This card, 1-drop 4/4. This card with Pierce. This card gains +2/+2 for each guidance counter on J/rulers you control. I know why they claused him that way, because they gave him Pierce and you didn't want to make him insane. However, by clausing him that way, this card is absolute garbage. Specifically, only being able to do things on your J/ruler. Faria wants to get to 4 counters, flip, and then give up all her counters. So then suddenly this guy is a 4/4 again. And then secondly, it's just not great. Like, it's just not great.
Jeremy, I'm just gonna put a ton of counters on my J ruler and play Hero of Might OTK, and you can't stop me.
That's true, except for all the spot removal that I could use for your Hero of Might.
For all the spot removal. That's correct.
Like, this is just like, I get why they were going for it. It's good. It's good.
Card's pokey.
It's good. Like, it's kind of like the black 4/4, right? Like, if you changed it, he could be absolutely insane, but by not changing it, you like made him too weak.
Trash.
Which, I mean, like, again, in a set of 100 cards, you gotta have cards like this sometimes. They
People
can't
are like, oh, power creep. This card's gonna be a 6/6 when you play with Faria. Not realizing that power creep has been setting in since literally the first set. But anyway.
Yeah. Like, this to me is a perfectly fair card. But when you look at the other things that Faria is able to do, and you look at the way she's probably going to want to play, this card just doesn't necessarily generate the value that you want for his type of effect. So,
I think it's only good in cluster, potentially as a 2-of, if you need extra spots to fill.
If based on, like, if there's effects on wanting to have a bunch of different strangers or something else like that, yeah.
Right.
I'm very excited to see what the water, fire, and darkness hero are. I can only imagine we're going to get those because we have the the wind hero, the hero of wind. So, like, I wonder what those are going to be like. And they'll probably all be better than that. So,
correct.
Probably.
All the blue is worse than white, so who knows?
Yeah. So overall, though, that puts us, that catches us up for the spoilers. I just, dang, like, good threats, good answers, good utility cards. Finally, some good floodgates.
Yeah.
Makes me excited about
Everybody gets one.
It makes me feel very flushed out. It makes me feel like all 5 of the rulers feel flushed out, even just with what we've seen so far. And so I'm excited to see more of that. It also makes me think that, like, they're not just gonna straight blow out the 6-age rulers, but also at the same time, the 6-age rulers aren't really getting a ton of additional stuff out of the set. Does that make sense? Which is what we want. What we want. You don't want the next set to completely invalidate the set before, but you also don't want the new set to just, like, absolutely insanely pump the already good ruler setups. So set 3 curse, I feel hopeful that set 3 curse has been avoided.
Yeah, this feels very self-contained, with the exception of something like Mini Violet, our obvious Void, our black thing that removes things from the graveyard, the new Witch. There doesn't seem like to be a lot of stuff that's, like, at this point anyway, we're gonna go back and figure things out. The new Tiger Magic. There are definitely, like, generic support cards, but they're very few.
Yeah.
And usually set 3 in Force of Will is the part in cluster where, like, things happen.
It feels very future-proofed as well. Like, it feels like there's not a ton of stuff that, like, I could see. Like, everything feels like, yeah, as the game goes on, these cards are still gonna be fine. And maybe I'm being too hopeful there, but, like, the overall set design is like, yeah, this is, like you said, self-contained, which, again, is an element of future-proofing. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a new player, I can see, like, oh, hey, what's the newest set? Like, picking up this, like, 3 boxes of this set, and you just automatically have everything you need, right? To just play the deck you want to play, and you're good to go, right? And then you're like, maybe I should go back to these other sets to see if there's stuff that can augment this. But for the most part, you can play the decks functionally very well with the stuff that's in the box.
Yes.
Right? So it's really good for new players too.
Yes. David, I asked to start making FOW terms, not Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh terms, please. I think for the most part we do use kind of Force of Will exclusive terms, or Force of Will kind of coin terms. There really hasn't been anything like this in Force of Will.
Bogus Meditation is a third pot of greed. It lets you draw 2 new cards from your deck and add them to your hand.
I'm trying to talk
Wait.
seriously to a chat member. So like we've never
So
really
pot of
had
greed
something.
does?
We've never really had something in Force of Will that's really effectively build the same role as something like a Floodgate. So there really hasn't been a way to there hasn't really been a good opportunity to coin a term for that. And so we here at Ruler School are just kind of going off of our previous experience.
We could call them hate witches instead of hate bears.
But like Void, that's not a witch, right?
Yeah. We kind of had some magic-ish terms with, you know, some of like Barrier of Shadows way back in the day where it was a taxing effect, which I think is from Magic.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a Magic term. It's just a shorthand card game term, I would say.
Yeah. Maybe coined by Magic, but for the most part, like generally specific. This again, like Floodgates, I think is something that Yu-Gi-Oh coined because I don't know how much they actually have those kinds of effects in Magic. Like this is literally saying you cannot play the game unless you get rid of this card, and then we're just going to keep stacking stuff on top of that to prevent the flood of your momentum from actually taking place. I don't know if that exists in Magic. You can say I'm wrong and tell me the term in the chat. I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
My teachers did well.
If you have some suggestions, David, would be happy to hear them. But we're coming off of the experience that we have.
Like when we initially got the counterstones, because we already had like shock rocks from when we were doing the stuff like the shock lands. We turned them into shock rocks because stones, and then we got the counterstones. We didn't have really anything, so we decided on shipwrecks. Anyway,
countdown stones, which is a
Jeremy, don't lie to me. I've never used that.
I have used that as a friendly moniker on a family-friendly channel. It's been over an hour. I'm taking these gloves off. Like we try to come up with things that are new, but we're more than welcome to hear suggestions. I do know that the terms that we have come up with, like I said, for the stones, were mostly community put forward. It's the same reason why, similarly, there's currently a dueling about the green Marvel rare, whether it will be Fat Witch or Loretta. I personally prefer Loretta, just because it's very clearly Lorite in disguise. But
Lorite did not have a pointy hat. Come on, Jeremy.
That hat ain't pointy. You can't see the tip of it.
Forceful conspiracy theories.
Anyway, that's gonna do it for us tonight. We hoped you enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. We do this every single week on Mondays. For those of you who are new, we're glad to have you here. The other thing that you can check out this week is our we're going to be doing streaming on Wednesday for Foul Wednesday. We're going to be playing some Conqueror. We got some classic Lumia 1 versus Dracula, as well as Cube, with maybe some surprises.
From what set, Jeremy? Understand indirect communication.
So
just put the set on your head so we know it's real.
Yeah. Maybe
shoe on head, thank you.
So we're doing that, but we're glad that you joined us for tonight for the discussion and the chat. It's always really wonderful when the chat is active. It makes it a lot more fun for us to be able to chat with you and answer questions and get your thoughts. Again, if you're interested, consider checking out the Ruler School TikTok, where I do my little spoilers in a minute every day, as well as other little silly videos or anything else that we have kind of. I'm also attempting to potentially do a series exclusively on TikTok that will be a ruler ranking, like rank a ruler in a minute out of 0 to 10, starting at the beginning of Force of Will's history and going to current, like literally every single ruler, just like 1 minute. Here's what this ruler did. Here's my thoughts. Here's a ranking out of 10. I think that could be pretty fun. But consider checking that out. It's just another way to get in touch with us, as well as consider joining our Discord down below. And you can also, I think they still have pre-orders for release of Rebirth of Legend available at Odyssey Games. They are sold out on set 3, but we will have links for set 4 as soon as possible there. But until next time, thank you all so much for joining. And this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined as always by Paul Reisman.
But if it's Harry Potter and his name is Brad, is this like a future Harry Potter that is also going to Hogwarts?
And Mike Rants.
Don't forget to join Force Bill Brad posting. We just got renamed. Put your garbage memes in there. It's what I do.
And until next time, class dismissed. Have a good night, everybody.